Have you ever felt like nothing made sense anymore? That even breathing hurt? That waking up every day was just repeating an empty routine, colorless, directionless, and devoid of will? That's exactly how David felt. His life, once full of dreams and plans, had become an unbearable burden. Each dawn seemed darker than the last, and behind a disguised smile, there was a silent scream that no one seemed to hear. Extreme depression had taken over everything and turned even the simplest thoughts into a battlefield. But what happens when the pain becomes so deep that it seems impossible to escape? When the mirror itself stops reflecting who you were and only shows a tired and powerless stranger. David's story is a stark portrait of someone who faced this emotional abyss, and even so, found a way back to life. But this journey wasn't easy. It was marked by endless nights, silent tears, and moments when he truly believed there was no way out. Depression doesn't knock on the door announcing its arrival. It creeps in slowly, taking up space within the mind, and making us believe nothing makes sense anymore. And that's exactly what happened to David. He began to withdraw from people, lose the sparkle in his eyes, stop doing the things he loved. Everything seemed distant, inaccessible, irreversible. And if you've ever been through something like this, or know someone who has, you know how this feeling can consume every inch of us. What makes this story so powerful is the fact that David was no different from anyone else. He was an ordinary person, with responsibilities, dreams, and weaknesses. And that's precisely where the identification lies. Because depression doesn't discriminate against age, class, or appearance. It simply arrives. And when it does, it steals your ground, your hope, your meaning. But at the same time, it's in this emptiness that the most surprising strength can be born. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover now could completely change the way you view pain, suffering, and most importantly, overcoming it. David reached a point where life seemed an unbearable burden. The days blurred together. Time lost its meaning. He found himself trapped in a cycle of sadness and guilt, where every thought became an open wound. No one could imagine what was happening inside him. On the outside, everything seemed fine. Inside, it was chaos. This duality between what we show the world and what we truly feel is something many hide, perhaps even you. But what few understand is that within the deepest darkness, there exists a spark. Small, almost invisible, but capable of rekindling life. And it was this spark that David, even without realizing it, kept burning amidst his despair. The pain pushed him to his limit, but it also prepared him for something he never imagined, rebuilding himself. The journey you're about to experience isn't about instant miracles or magic solutions. It's about humanity, about the power of allowing yourself to feel, to fall, and to get back up. It's about understanding that even rock bottom can be the beginning of a new story. And perhaps as you listen to David's story, you'll also find a reflection of something that lives within, a strength that time, pain, or fear haven't been able to erase. What happened next was the beginning of a profound transformation, a turning point that would change everything. But before understanding how David managed to get back on his feet, we need to go back to the moment when everything began to fall apart. And as David delved deeper and deeper within himself, something quiet began to shift. It wasn't a grand event, nor a sudden miracle. It was just an instant, a thought, a memory, a feeling that perhaps there was still something inside him worth saving. It's strange to think that, even in the darkest moments, the heart insists on beating, as if silently saying, "It's not over yet." Maybe you've felt something like this before. Maybe you've also gone through phases where the world seemed to be falling apart, and no one seemed to understand what was going on inside you. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what touched you most so far. Your story, what you felt or experienced, could inspire someone reading this who needs to know they're not alone. Each comment here isn't just an exchange of words. It's a way to create a genuine space of support, where people facing silent battles can recognize each other and grow stronger together. And if this message resonated with you, if at any point in this story you felt a lump in your throat or a memory surface, take the opportunity to like it. It may seem like a simple gesture, but it makes all the difference. It's your way of saying, yes, this kind of content matters. When you like it, YouTube understands that this video has value, and this allows it to reach more people who, like David, and perhaps like you, need to hear these words right now. And of course, if you believe in the power of real stories of overcoming adversity, if you want to continue following content that speaks of pain, hope, and rebirth in a genuine and human way, subscribe to the channel. That way, every week, you'll have a new reason to reflect, be inspired, and remember that, even when life is tough, there's always a new beginning. Your presence here isn't just a number, it's the beating heart of this community. It's because of every person who comments, likes, and subscribes that stories like David's continue to be told. Because every time someone chooses to stay, the reach of this message expands, and more lives can be touched, awakened, and transformed. Meanwhile, David still didn't imagine that that small spark inside him was about to grow, that the pain that had broken him would soon become the foundation of something new. And it's at this point that his journey truly begins to change. For months, David locked himself in his room, surrounded only by silence and his own thoughts. The curtains remained closed, the air seemed thicker, and time simply ceased to exist. The hours passed without him noticing, the days blurred together, and the only constant was that feeling of profound emptiness, an invisible hole that sucked away everything left inside him. His messages stopped being answered. His phone rang, and he let it ring, as if the outside world no longer had anything to do with him. Every breath was an effort. Every small movement felt like a weight. It was as if life had lost its sound, its color, and its meaning. What no one saw were the silent battles taking place there within four walls. He fought his own thoughts, trying to understand how something so invisible could cause so much pain. His mind dragged him into a labyrinth with no way out, full of distorted memories, fabricated guilt, and broken promises. There was a cold, insistent inner voice that repeated the same refrain: "Nothing will change. You won't make it." And the more he tried to silence that voice, the stronger it became. The hidden truth about rock bottom is that it has no shape or measure. It's a prison built from within, where the walls are made of fear and the floor is made of regret. And there, within this dark space, David began to lose himself. Everything he believed in, hope, purpose, faith, seemed to have been erased. But at the same time, there was something curious about this collapse. A kind of silence that, though painful, began to reveal small truths he had never seen before. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because it's at this very point, when everything seems to be falling apart, that transformation begins to take shape, albeit imperceptibly. Behind the scenes of pain, amid tears and confused thoughts, small decisions emerge, almost invisible gestures, which later become the beginning of reconstruction. And it was there, amidst the chaos, that something inside David began to change. Comment there. That makes sense to me. It was on one of those days when everything seemed the same. The same dark room, the same heavy silence, the same emptiness, that something different happened. David had gone out only out of necessity, wandering the streets aimlessly, almost invisible in the crowd. And it was there, amid the rush of strangers, that a small gesture changed everything. A man, sitting on a bench, looked at him and said something simple, but unexpectedly profound. "You have a tired look in your eyes, but there's still life in you." These words, spoken by someone he'd never seen before, pierced the armor that held him captive. It was as if, for a second, the world had stopped to remind him of something he'd forgotten: his own worth. That phrase echoed in his mind for days. There's still life in there. he repeated mentally, trying to understand why it had hurt so much, and at the same time, warmed something he'd thought was extinguished. It was a silent shock, the first crack in the wall of hopelessness. From that moment on, something inside him began to move, very slowly, almost imperceptibly, but real. It wasn't a sudden shift, nor a magical illumination. It was a seed, a spark, a reminder that, despite everything, there was still a reason to keep breathing. This moment, which to many might seem small, had a huge impact. It was the beginning of a mindset shift, a subtle awakening that showed that transformation doesn't happen when everything is perfect, but when we decide to look at our own pain differently. The hidden truth is that sometimes, a single sentence, a word, a look, is enough to break the cycle of despair. It was in that moment that David realized that maybe he didn't need to understand everything. Maybe he just needed to choose not to give up that day. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic. Because from this realization, every decision, every step, every attempt became part of a journey of reconstruction. And it was in this process that he began to discover the true meaning of fighting for himself. The days that followed weren't easy. That one phrase that had awakened something inside David kept echoing, but the pain didn't just disappear. He was learning in real time that overcoming depression isn't a single leap. It's a slow journey, full of detours and stumbles. Every morning became a test, a choice between staying in bed or just trying to get up, even reluctantly. Sometimes the simple act of taking a shower or opening a window felt like a huge victory. He started to see these tiny achievements as part of a larger process. It wasn't about feeling great every day. It was about trying, resisting, and allowing himself to feel without feeling guilty. There were relapses, of course, many of them. Days when everything seemed to slide backward, when the weight returned even stronger, and his mind whispered that none of it was working. But little by little, David realized something crucial. Every time he faced that pain and still took one small step, he was rewriting his own story. It was an internal battle between what he believed he was and what, deep down, he could still become. This was the hidden truth of the process. The fight wasn't against the world, but against the voices in his head trying to convince him to give up. This journey taught him that overcoming adversity isn't pretty. It's made of tears, silence, and invisible decisions that nobody applauds. It's the backstage of transformation, the work that happens when no one is watching. For a long time, David believed that asking for help was a sign of weakness. He had learned to hide his pain behind a casual, "I'm fine," even when everything inside him was falling apart. But the truth is, nobody wins these invisible battles alone. The day he finally decided to open his mouth and say, "I need help," was the first real step toward healing. It wasn't easy. The words struggled to come out. Shame tried to silence him, and the fear of judgment almost made him retreat. But when he saw that people were willing to listen without pointing fingers, something inside him began to ease. It was as if, for the first time in a long time, he let the weight drop. Seeking professional help was one of the most transformative decisions of his journey. Therapy confronted him with truths he never wanted to see. The hidden causes behind his sadness, the repeating patterns, the self-destructive mindset that held him back without him even realizing it. With each session, he discovered a new piece of himself and understood that vulnerability didn't make him lesser. It made him more human. He realized that real courage isn't in bearing everything alone, but in allowing yourself to be seen, to be cared for, and to be understood. From that moment on, the loneliness began to fade. He reconnected with friends, allowed himself to laugh again, and accepted hugs he'd previously rejected. And amid these connections, he realized something powerful. Healing doesn't just happen inside the mind, but also in our encounters with others. There's a silent power in being heard, a rebirth that happens when someone holds your pain with you. It was in this process of opening up that David began to understand the true meaning of starting over. Over time, David started to see his pain differently. What once seemed like an unbearable burden began to reveal itself as an essential part of his story. He realized that every scar had something to teach him, that wounds, however painful, could also be portals to transformation. Suffering was no longer the end of the road. It was the starting point for a new chapter. Little by little, life regained its subtle colors. Simple gestures started to have meaning again, and what was once just survival transformed into a genuine search for purpose. During this process of rediscovery, David began to rebuild his identity. He understood he wasn't the same man he was before, and that wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, it was a sign of evolution. The pain had stripped away everything superficial, leaving only the essential, the desire to live a true, authentic life. He started to look inward with more compassion, to accept his flaws, to respect his own timing. Instead of asking that why me, he began to ask, what can I learn from this? This simple shift in mindset opened up new paths. He understood that he could transform what hurt him into something that healed, not just for himself, but for others as well. Every step became a conscious choice, every decision an act of self-love. The hidden truth is that the meaning of life isn't found in avoiding pain, but in learning from it, in discovering the impact we can make even after falling down so many times. It was precisely when David accepted his own shadows that he began to find the light on his path. If you're feeling this, I want you to comment below, one step at a time. With each passing day, David began to realize something that once seemed impossible. The pain he carried could become fuel for his own transformation. Every moment of sadness, every silent tear, every dark thought started to serve as a kind of wake-up call. It showed him not only what needed to change, but also revealed strengths he never imagined he possessed. Depression had broken him in many ways, but paradoxically, it also taught him who he truly was. It stripped away the masks and allowed him to see himself more clearly and honestly than ever before. He started introducing small changes to his habits, knowing that nothing would change overnight. Short walks became a routine. Moments of silence became opportunities for self-discovery. Simple decisions like calling a friend or writing down his thoughts became exercises in rebuilding himself from the inside out. Each choice had an impact. Each small gesture was part of a journey that, though invisible to the world, was intense and transformative. He began to understand that the process isn't linear, that setbacks don't mean failure, they mean learning. They are revelations about your own mind and the capacity for resilience we all have, even when we feel like we're on the edge of an abyss. This inner transformation brought a profound shift in David's mindset. He started to see obstacles not as insurmountable walls, but as opportunities for growth. He understood that true power lies not in avoiding pain, but in learning from it. The behind the scenes of this journey showed that evolution isn't made of giant leaps, but of small daily decisions that, when combined, create massive change. Gradually, he began to feel a real impact on his self-esteem, the way he related to the world, and most importantly, the way he saw himself. It was precisely at this point, when David began to use his own pain as fuel, that the next steps of his transformation began to reveal something even more powerful. As David grew stronger internally, something began to happen externally as well. He realized that his story, once a source of pain and isolation, could become a bridge for others. Every experience, every setback, and every small victory started to carry a purpose beyond himself. It was as if the hidden truth of his journey was saying, if I could get through this, maybe you can too. And that's how he began to transform his own vulnerability into inspiration. He started sharing his experiences, first with friends and family, and gradually, with people he'd never even met. Each honest story, each vulnerable word, had a direct impact on those who felt alone or hopeless. David realized that the suffering that once isolated him could become a powerful tool for connection, showing that no one needs to face their darkness alone. The mindset he developed of seeing each challenge as a learning experience began to spread naturally, creating a ripple effect of empathy and strength. The real power of this process was behind the scenes, in the small decisions to open up, to share what he felt without fear, and to embrace his story as an instrument of transformation. And it was at this point that he discovered something even more valuable. Inspiring others didn't erase his scars, but it gave them meaning. Each time someone found hope in his story, each message of gratitude reinforced the idea that strength can rise even from the ashes. He went from being just a survivor of his own pain to a living example of resilience, showing that the impact we can have goes far beyond what we imagine. Your own experience, when shared, can become a beacon that illuminates the journey for others. If you believe your story has power, write in the comments, "My story can inspire." Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content that explores the power of the human spirit. Remember, you are not alone, and your journey matters. See you next time. If you're going through times when everything feels overwhelming, when each day feels the same and every thought weighs like a stone, I want you to know that you're not alone. David has been there too. He's felt that emptiness, that hopelessness, the feeling that nothing makes sense anymore. And yet, he found a way to transform his pain into strength, discovering that what seemed overwhelming could actually become fuel for his transformation. The hidden truth is that pain doesn't define who we are. It only reveals the depths of our humanity. It shows us that we are capable of endurance, of learning, and of evolving, even when all seems lost. Throughout his journey, David realized that every single decision, no matter how small, carried a real impact. Every step toward recovery, every choice to open up to someone, every moment he chose to get up and carry on, even when he was wounded, had the power to rewrite his story. This is the beauty of transformation. It happens behind the scenes, in the small daily victories that no one else sees, but which shape our mindset and reveal who we truly are. And it is precisely this ability to reinvent ourselves, even after suffering, that makes the journey so powerful and so inspiring. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it's at this point when we begin to see our own pain as a learning experience, that we can discover surprising revelations about who we truly are, our potential, and the impact each of us can have by sharing our own story. It is at this point that overcoming adversity stops being merely personal and becomes something that can touch other lives, inspire, and generate silent but profound changes. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." As we reflect on David's journey, it's impossible not to see how pain, even when it's deep and overwhelming, can become a catalyst for extraordinary change. The depression that once seemed to engulf every inch of his life gradually became a turning point, an opportunity for self-discovery and reconstruction. He learned that it's not just about surviving, but about allowing yourself to feel, to understand, and to grow from every experience, including the ones that hurt us the most. Each challenge he faced, each decision he made in the middle of despair, helped shape a mindset capable of seeing beyond the suffering. He started discovering hidden meanings and revealing truths that were previously buried beneath layers of fear and insecurity. The impact of accepting and understanding his own vulnerability extended far beyond himself. David realized that his story could serve as an inspiration for others, that the behind-the-scenes moments of his transformation, the silent struggles, the small victories, the setbacks, and the lessons learned, had the power to touch other lives. He began to see pain no longer as an enemy, but as a teacher. Every tear he shed and every difficulty he faced contributed to strengthening his resilience, helping him redefine his priorities, rebuild his habits, and above all, rediscover the purpose of his existence. The hidden truth is that true strength doesn't come from the absence of problems, but from our ability to navigate them, to transform suffering into fuel for a journey of continuous transformation. Now let's go even deeper into this, because it's at this point that we understand that hope isn't something abstract, but a concrete decision. It's choosing to take one step forward each day, even when the path seems uncertain. It's looking within ourselves with empathy and realizing that each experience, no matter how painful, contributes to our personal evolution. And it's this understanding that allows us to transform not only our own lives, but also to positively impact those around us. Discovering that we can rise from our own ashes, that pain can become a learning experience, and that every decision has a real impact opens the door to a growth mindset and a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be human. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for following this story so closely. David's journey shows us that even in the most difficult moments, there's always room for transformation and hope. And if you felt this message touched something deep inside you, leave a comment. I'm with you until the end. Or this message was for me. It's a way to share that you were here and that these words truly resonated with your own journey. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it strengthens the connection we've built throughout this video and helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear something similar. And if you want to continue delving into themes of overcoming, inspiration, and transformation, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. We always strive to bring content that can make a true and profound impact. There's a video right here that complements this topic. Click and follow along, because the journey doesn't have to stop here. Every step, every reflection, and every story you follow has the power to awaken something new and further strengthen your own transformation.